ma'am.
Roomy enough.
I can't see you very well. I see him.
With Darby from Tiny Texas Houses.
Yeah.
He is building his tiny homes from all repurposed materials. Is that correct? We have
Pretty much 95%
95
salvage
yes.
material.
Yes.
So I'm a big believer in taking the best of the new world. In this case, we got wonderful screws, Torx head screws that I can use, ceramic coated. Can't buy those in the old days. Okay, so that's one of the new things I use. Of course, gun nails, because I can't hand bang a nail into my wood. It's too darn hard. And then, of course, the other option is that with the plumbing I use is space age, won't burst.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, of course, is I use house wraps. And the house wraps, I use an aluminized house wrap, so it's a radiant barrier.
Mm.
It actually fends off another 15% of the heat, in addition to what you're blocking with your insulation. It's aluminized, and it's twice as expensive as the regular, but in the long run, on a tiny house, you're talking about $200 more
Right.
to go ahead and run top of the line.
Exactly.
Then I use a self-sealing underlayment underneath the metal roof. So every screw that goes through seals itself with like a tar. Not like a tar paper, which is worthless.
Right.
But this is a high temperature self-sealing underlayment. It's guaranteed for 30 years. So my tin might last 15 or 20 years. If it leaks, it just runs underneath and runs off. So with those upgrades in modern world, that's the extent of my new materials.
Very nice.
Everything else is all old wood, trees that were grown 500 years ago, and other wonderful benefits like that. I can literally take 20 gallons of diesel fuel, take a house down, drive all the materials back here, and put a house up with 20 more gallons of diesel fuel if I were to run it on a generator. That's all it takes. It's about 40 gallons of diesel fuel for the energy to create 95% of my house.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on I shifted over to Isonine. Isonine is a water-based spray-on foam, and it is so far superior to anything else out there on the market that even though it's a little more expensive,
Yes.
it makes sense to use it. 2 inches of it will block 92% of the heat or cold. 4 inches of it blocks 94%, 6 inches of it blocks 96%. So all the work's done in the first 2 inches. So when you're building tiny and you want to go down to minimal amount of insulation thickness, Isonine is by far the best. No outgassing, no formaldehyde, no food value, no fire value, and it adds 10 pounds of structural strength per square inch, which means that it makes your place stronger. Not like fiberglass, it just sits inside the wall. It does not allow air to pass through, but it does allow water to pass through, which is a great advantage. Particularly in one case where I sent out a 32-foot long house and they left the water on and the heat off for the freeze 3 years ago. So when they did go check it out Friday when it thawed, they lived 30 miles away, hadn't moved into the house yet. Saturday you think maybe I'll go check my new house. Nah, 30 miles is too far. Sunday they got out there. 19,840 gallons of water. It sprayed on the bathroom wall where the plumbing had separated from the tub. I use PEX plumbing so it doesn't burst, but the knuckle on the stainless steel burst.
Okay.
And so it sprayed nearly 20,000 gallons of water on the floor, all the way through the house, ran through the house.
Right.
Swelled the floors up a little bit, but because I used longleaf pine, they didn't buckle and they didn't blow out. Longleaf pine is a water wood. It loves water.
Yes.
and ran around underneath the baseboards and said, don't use plywood. It ran through the shiplap and then down through the icynene, which let it run out of the floor. So 20,000 gallons of water ran through the house and out the bottom of it. They freaked out, called me up. I said, put a fan in there, put heaters in there, because it's wintertime. Literally, within a week, we went in there and buffed out the floors, and that was the extent of the damage, was buffing out the floors and putting new oil on them. Now, I defy anybody with a new house made out of particle board, plywood, and all those other things, fiberglass and such, to be able to do that.
Right.
There's no degradation in the icynene. It lets the water pass through without degrading, so it's still good insulation. This is the evolution of 35 years in the salvage business, of doing rehab with salvage.
Okay. Right.
So I came to Texas and ended up getting into the real estate business up in Austin and doing rehab in East Austin in the 80s. And worked in neighborhoods that were pretty much destroyed. Crackheads, a lot of drug dealing, and just dilapidated, condemned houses. And so I went in and started fixing up old houses in East Austin years ago and selling them to first-time home buyers. So when there was 50,000, 47,000, now those same houses are 350,000.
Wow.
They were the original old style 800, 600, 800 square foot houses, which is what we typically had in the United States all the way up into the 50s. And so I was constantly working on these little houses. I didn't want to put new junky materials like aluminum windows in them and vinyl windows and carpet and stuff. And so I started off doing rehab and won a lot of awards. Rehab and Revitalization Awards in Austin, and ultimately the Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the socially responsible category for fixing up old neighborhoods that were dilapidated. And decided to start an architectural antiques business that would be very small and let me spend time with my son. Became the largest architectural antique store in the United States. We tore down houses, we bought materials in from Buffalo, New York, Chicago, St. Louis, because nobody in Texas was doing it. So the goal of my building houses, I promised I would build 100 examples of what we could do with salvage. I built over 75 of them. I have 25 more to build, and they'll be in the village so people can experience them and stay in them. Because once somebody sleeps in one of my houses, they understand the difference. The objective of this is first prove we can do something better, then empower people to go do it themselves so they can afford it. How do I basically do that? We have billions of dollars of materials, salvage materials, the best quality ever on the planet. Trees. Now, if I can empower people to go out there and get all the materials, all their windows, their doors, their flooring, their studs, their siding, their metal roofing, and everything for free, human energy. I got 92 million people in this country that aren't working. That means a mother with her 4 boys can go out there and tear down a house, and they can build their tiny houses and be empowered as a small family and write off all of their expenses against their taxes and pay no taxes that way, and have a car that's being written off, or truck, tools, and every time you go out of town to tear down a house, hey boys, government's paying for our meals. You teach the average person how to have a small business and write off all their expenses, and they want to pay any taxes to support the war and support the corporate socialism where we give big banks and big oil companies money but won't give little tiny entrepreneurs any money. This is a way of starting 1 million tiny businesses of small families that don't have to pay unemployment tax, don't have to pay all of the expenses the big corporations do. And we can go out and do this and be more than competitive. They can't even begin to compete with this, and that's why they don't want to allow it to happen. If I can teach you and your wife and your 2 daughters how to go out there and tear a house down and build each of them a tiny house, and build you a house to live in, have a little compound. They go off to college, they take their little tiny house off to the town they're going to, and they bring it back to the compound when they're done, and then they expand on it. And it's all done with free materials and human energy. Now, BFI and all the landfill companies, are they doing well? Hell yes, they're doing well. 50% of our landfills are building materials, and we're running out of landfills. Okay, gee, let's not throw all of our building materials away, like I do. Let's say, give a tax credit. And this is my proposal. Should be going all the way up to the President Trump. Give a tax credit for whatever percentage of my house is made out of the trash that would have gone into the dump. Salvage. They never pay a penny tax once it's in the dump. I have a living landfill. I put it back in to use as a house. If you gave me a write-off for whatever percentage it is that's salvage, How many people in America would want their house to be 95% pure salvage? No taxes for the rest of the life of the house. No property tax on that house. Do you think I wouldn't have a sudden industry of people, Americans, because you can't import people to do this, got to have Americans go out and tear down all these houses?
Right.
And we create outposts like this. This is a giant warehouse where you store the stuff that everybody stores in common. You have a common work area where you can build your houses at. Tools that you can share. So you don't have to go out and buy yourself a saw, table saw, router, and all these things to build with. You share them. When you're done, we have a common trailer. You pick it up and take it out to your village where you're going to live, or your compound where your family's going to be living, where your houses will go. And then you barter in exchange. So your elder teacher is teaching your children instead of the school system. You're bartering with windows and doors to pay for it, or flooring. Or you help them build their house. And you're part of a co-op. Everybody benefits. If this tax write-off were there for salvage, we would reduce the amount going into our landfills. We'd be building non-toxic houses out of materials that cannot be replaced. There are no more 500-year-old trees. And I tell people all the time, we have the largest standing virgin forest in the world, hidden in the United States, waiting to be harvested and turned into another generation of housing. This is 500-year-old trees. Hidden as barns, buildings, and old houses all around our country. And everybody says, tear that piece of crap down and throw it in the dump. That piece of crap is worth $20,000 to $30,000 in lumber. And all you have to do to take it down is human energy. I've got nail guns that shoot the nails out backwards. Poof, poof, poof. You put a girl on that gun, I'm telling you what, 3 boys can't keep up with all the wood that she can clean up. That's Mama. And her 3 boys bringing her wood. Hey boys, keep up, get going. Because Mama can go out there and take a house down with her 3 or 4 boys in a month's time, make $5,000. And write off the trucks, write off the tools, write off the food to feed them with, and support her family with trash. This could be happening all over our country. We've got industrialized cities right now like Cincinnati, tearing down 14,000 houses a year. Detroit, 20,000 houses a year. Those are resources we cannot replace for the cost of human energy.